The plane hadn't even taken off yet, and already, everyone looked exhausted. A baby's cry cut through the cabin, sharp, desperate, the kind that comes from real fear, not fussiness. Passengers shifted, rolled their eyes, rubbed their temples. A man in a suit muttered something under his breath. A teenager snorted. A woman sighed dramatically as she tightened her seatbelt. In the middle of it all sat a young mother, holding her red-faced baby against her chest. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely adjust the blanket. She kept whispering apologies, each one smaller and more embarrassed than the last. But no one cared about her apology. They only cared about the noise. A flight attendant knelt beside her, trying to help, but nothing worked. The baby's cries grew louder, echoing off the narrow walls of the plane. The air felt tight, tense, uncomfortable. People weren't just annoyed now, they were angry. One man, a businessman with silver hair and sharp eyes, finally snapped, "Ma'am, can you not control your child?" The mother flinched as if slapped. Her eyes filled instantly. She whispered, I'm really trying." But her voice wasn't strong enough to defend herself. Passengers around her shook their heads, whispering judgments they didn't bother to hide. Someone pulled out their phone to record. Another person pressed the call button again, demanding some kind of solution. And yet, through all that noise and chaos, one person sat still. A black boy, maybe 14, quiet and alone, hugging an old backpack to his chest. He hadn't complained once. He hadn't sighed or glared at the mother. He just watched, not with annoyance, but with something softer, something sad. His eyes followed the baby's trembling breaths, the mother's trembling hands, and something inside him shifted. A memory, a wound, a feeling he thought he buried months ago. He sat there, gripping the straps of his backpack, heart beating unevenly as he listened to the cries. The boy stood, slowly, hesitantly, as if stepping into a world that never expected anything good from him. Passengers turned to stare at him now, suspicious, irritated, ready to blame him too. But the boy didn't look at them. He looked at the baby. And the baby, for one strange moment, looked back. The boy inhaled, steadied himself, and gently leaned forward, humming a soft, steady tune. A tune that didn't belong to this plane. A tune that came from a deeper place. A tune no one else understood. Not yet. What they didn't know would change everything. Malik had always been the quiet one. Not because he wanted to be, but because life had taught him a long time ago that silence was safer than being misunderstood. At 14, he looked younger than his age, thin, soft-eyed, with the kind of gentle presence people overlooked without even trying. He traveled with nothing but an old backpack, its straps worn from years of being held too tightly. Inside it were a few clothes, a picture of his grandmother, and a tiny knitted hat, the kind made for newborns. He kept that hat wrapped carefully as if it were made of glass. Because to Malik, it was all he had left of his baby sister. Malik was flying alone for the first time. He was on his way to stay with his aunt for a few weeks because the only person he had at home, his grandmother, had just come out of surgery. Malik insisted she shouldn't worry about him during recovery. He didn't tell her the real reason. Every room in their house reminded him of the baby they lost. His sister, Layla, born early, too early, with lungs too small and a heart too tired. Malik used to sit beside her hospital bed every night after school. He'd hold her tiny hand and hum to her, a simple tune his grandmother used to sing when he was younger. A tune warm enough to fill those cold hospital nights with something close to peace. Layla always calmed when he hummed. Until the night she didn't. Since then Malik talked less, laughed less, slept less. But he hummed sometimes when he was alone, not because he wanted comfort, but because he was afraid he'd forget the only thing that ever soothed her. He didn't know that tune would become the thread, tying him to someone else's child on this flight. The plane was nearly full when Malik boarded. He kept his head low, avoiding eye contact, used to the way strangers reacted to him. A woman pulled her purse closer as he walked past. A man gave him a long look, the kind that wasn't curiosity, more like suspicion wrapped in politeness. Malik pretended not to notice. He always pretended. He took his seat near the middle of the plane, putting his backpack under his feet where he could feel it. It made him feel grounded, like he could anchor himself to the floor if the world started spinning again. Across the aisle sat a young mother, Sarah. holding her 10-month-old son, Oliver. She looked tired the moment Malik saw her. Not just physically tired, but soul tired. Oliver squirmed restlessly, rubbing his eyes, breathing too fast. Sarah kept bouncing him, kissing his forehead, whispering soft reassurances. Her voice wavered with exhaustion. She wasn't alone by choice. She had recently separated from her husband. The divorce was messy, cold, and full of arguments about custody. This flight wasn't a vacation for her, it was an escape. A place she hoped she could breathe for a few hours, away from lawyers and accusations. But sitting there, she wasn't breathing at all. She kept glancing around, already worried her baby might cry. She could feel the judgment before it even arrived. Then there was the antagonist force on this flight. Though no one would have used that word out loud. Mr. Davis. Sharp suit, sharp eyes, sharp tongue. He walked like he owned every space he entered, and he looked at people the same way, especially anyone he thought didn't belong in his world. When the baby whimpered as passengers settled, Davis shot the mother a look of annoyance. She forced a small, apologetic smile, but he ignored it. Malik noticed the look. He'd seen looks like that his entire life. He sank deeper into his seat. The plane doors closed. Passengers shuffled, settled, adjusted. The flight attendants did their final checks. And right as the engines began to hum, little Oliver let out the first sharp cry. Sarah tensed instantly. She knew this moment was coming. She rocked him, whispered to him, held him close, but nothing helped. The cry rose higher, louder, more desperate. It echoed through the cabin, bouncing off the walls. And the whispers began. She shouldn't travel with a baby if she can't handle him. Some people just don't know how to parent. Here we go, a screaming kid for hours. Sarah's face crumpled. She mouthed, "I'm sorry," to anyone who looked her way. No one offered kindness. Only blame. Malik watched from across the aisle, his heart tightening. Oliver's breathing pattern hit him like a memory, unsteady, frantic, too familiar. It was the same sound Layla used to make when she couldn't catch her breath. His fingers curled against the armrest. He looked at the mother, her helplessness, her shame, the way she desperately fought to soothe her child but kept failing. He looked at the baby, red cheeks, tiny fists, trembling breaths. He looked at the passengers, annoyed, impatient, ready to judge. And in that moment, Malik felt something he hadn't felt in months. A pull. A responsibility. A quiet calling, the same one he used to feel when Layla cried at night, and he knew she needed him. He didn't know what to do yet. He didn't know if he even should do anything. He didn't want attention, he didn't want to draw eyes, he didn't want trouble. But as Oliver struggled, Malik's chest grew heavier. His grandmother always told him something he never forgot. Some pains aren't meant to break you, baby. They're meant to teach you how to help someone else. For months, he didn't believe her. But on this plane, watching this baby cry, feeling everyone's coldness, remembering his sister's faint heartbeat, he wondered for the first time if maybe, just maybe, his pain had brought him here for a reason. And with that thought, the slow, quiet journey toward the inciting incident began. The first sharp cry was loud. The second was louder. By the third, every head on the plane had turned. Oliver arched his back, tiny fists shaking as he screamed from deep discomfort. His face turned blotchy red, wet with tears. He wasn't just fussing, he was terrified. Something about the pressure, the unfamiliar space, the overwhelming noise, it was too much for a 10-month-old to understand. Sarah rocked him desperately, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart, please, it's okay." But nothing was okay. Her voice shook, her arms shook, even her breathing trembled with rising panic. A flight attendant approached, her expression polite but strained. "Ma'am, do you need anything?" I don't know," Sarah stammered. "He won't stop, he's in pain, I think." Before the attendant could respond, a man leaned into the aisle. "Mr. Davis." "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "We haven't even taken off yet." Sarah froze, holding her baby closer. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, voice cracking. "Sorry doesn't stop the noise," Davis shot back, loud enough for everyone to hear. Passengers murmured in agreement. The teenager, too, rose ahead, turned around to glare. A woman sighed dramatically. Another shook her head, muttering, "Here we go." And all of it, every judgment, every complaint stabbed at Sarah like tiny knives. Malik watched from across the aisle, his fingers tightening around the straps of his backpack. He could feel the mother's humiliation. He could feel the baby's fear. He could feel the weight in the cabin, cold, sharp, merciless. It was the same energy he remembered from hospital waiting rooms and school hallways, where whispers weren't meant to be heard, but always were, where pain was seen as inconvenience, where vulnerability made people cruel. The plane began moving toward the runway, and the pressure shift only made Oliver cry harder. Sarah flinched with each scream, whispering, "Please, please, please," as if begging the world to be gentle with her. But the world wasn't listening. It rarely did. Malik swallowed hard. Oliver's breathing, fast, shallow, uneven, hit Malik in the chest with a memory so vivid it almost blinded him. Layla, her tiny chest rising and falling too quickly. The way her cries hitched when she was scared. The way nurses rushed in when her breathing changed pitch. This baby's cry was dangerously close to that sound. Malik's heart thudded. He wasn't a doctor. He wasn't family. He wasn't even supposed to stand up. But something inside him was screaming louder than the baby. "Help him!" More passengers turned around. "Can someone fix this? Why is she even traveling alone?" Unbelievable. The mother shrank in her seat, her shoulders curled inward. She clutched her baby protectively, tears spilling down her cheeks. She wasn't the problem. She wasn't the enemy. She was drowning, and no one offered a hand. Except one boy who wasn't even sure he deserved to breathe loudly in public spaces. Malik's foot tapped uncontrollably against the floor. His breath grew shaky, memories blurred with reality. He remembered how nurses would bend over Layla's crib, adjusting wires and tubes. How they'd hum gently to calm her. How he'd sit beside her and hum too, trying to match the rhythm of her heartbeat on the monitor. That tune had become Layla's comfort. Her anchor. Her safe place. It was the only thing that ever soothed her. Now he heard another baby, scared, gasping, overwhelmed, and the tune rose inside him like an instinct. He didn't want attention. He didn't want eyes on him. He didn't want the stares that always came when a black kid stood up in a space he was supposed to. But he wanted something more. For that baby to stop suffering. Oliver's cry suddenly escalated into a harsh, painful shriek that made even Malik flinch. The sound wasn't normal. Malik knew that sound too well. Sarah panicked, pressing the call button. "Please, he's hurting. Something's wrong, he's hurting." Mr. Davis groaned loudly. "Oh, for God's sake." And something inside Malik snapped. Not in anger. In purpose. He unbuckled his seatbelt. Slowly, quietly, as if afraid the world would punish him for even trying. He stood. His knees were shaking. Passengers looked up instantly, every eye sharp, suspicious, irritated. They didn't care that he was just a kid. They didn't care that he looked scared. All they saw was someone standing when they wanted silence. Mr. Davis shot him a glare. A cold, heavy one. "What do you think you're doing?" Davis demanded. Malik froze. The fear washed over him like a wave, the fear every black boy in America learns early. The fear of being misinterpreted, miscalled, mistrusted. But then Oliver's cry wavered, a broken, painful sound, and Malik's eyes darted back to the baby. Sarah looked up at him through tears. He could see the question in her eyes. "Do you know something I don't?" Malik swallowed. I think I can help," he whispered. It was the first full sentence he'd spoken all day. Sarah blinked, surprised by the softness in his voice. But Mr. Davis snapped, "Sit down, kid, you're just making it worse." The flight attendant hesitated, unsure what to do. Malik slowly lowered himself back into his seat. His hands trembled. He hated himself a little for sitting. He hated that fear still ruled him. But then, Oliver let out a choking cry that made Malik's entire body tense. That was exactly the sound Layla made when her chest tightened, and she couldn't get enough air. Malik's breath caught. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory. Sometimes, baby, courage comes after fear, not before it. Malik stood again. Faster. Stronger. This time, he didn't look at Davis. He didn't look at the passengers. He didn't look at the flight attendant. He looked at the baby. Sarah stared at him, not with judgment, but with desperation, hope, terror, all tangled together. Malik stepped forward one careful, shaky step. "May I try?" he asked again, voice barely above a whisper. But the way he said it, the way his hands trembled, the way his eyes softened, Sarah knew this wasn't random. This boy had seen this pain before. She nodded weakly, tears streaming down her face. "Please, if you can, please." Malik approached slowly, like he was approaching something sacred. He didn't touch the baby. He didn't reach out. He just knelt slightly so his face was level with Oliver's. Oliver's screams wavered for a split second, not stopping, but hesitating. As if sensing something different. Something familiar. Malik inhaled shakily. His throat tightened. His eyes burned. His chest ached. But he opened his mouth and hummed a soft, trembling tune. The tune he hadn't sung, not truly sung, since Layla's last night. A tune that carried loss, love, memory, and warmth. A tune that wasn't meant for this plane, but somehow was meant for this moment. Oliver's cry stuttered. His shaking slowed. His breath softened. Passengers leaned forward, stunned. Sarah covered her mouth as tears poured down her cheeks. And Malik kept humming, gently, steadily, pouring every ounce of his pain and comfort into that melody. Oliver fell silent. Completely silent. The cabin froze. No one moved. No one spoke. Dozens of eyes stared at the boy who looked like he might collapse from the emotion of it all. The baby stared back at Malik with calm, wet eyes, as if recognizing the tune, as if feeling what Malik felt, as if understanding the grief behind it. And that was the moment the entire flight changed. Because the boy no one noticed, just did the one thing no one else could. The passengers stared as Jordan lifted the baby into his arms, but the boy wasn't paying attention to them. His entire focus was on the child in front of him. The baby's tiny fists were still shaking, his chest rising too fast, breaths uneven and panicked. Jordan held him the same way he used to hold his baby sister when she cried, carefully, close enough for warmth but loose enough so the child didn't feel trapped. He continued humming that familiar tune. Soft, slow, steady, like a heartbeat in music form. The mother watched with wide, wet eyes, hands pressed over her mouth as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. And the baby slowly quieted. The cries softened, then faded, then fell into a fragile whimper. A miracle in real time. Passengers froze, unable to hide their shock. Even the businessman, the one who had complained the loudest, stared as if someone had just rewritten reality. Jordan didn't look proud. He didn't smile. His expression stayed small, careful, almost scared, as if he expected someone to rip the baby away or accuse him of something. Because that's what usually happened in his life. But the mother didn't pull away. She rested a shaky hand on her chest and whispered, "Thank you, oh my God, thank you." Jordan nodded without meeting her eyes. He didn't want to make a scene. He just wanted the crying to stop. He just wanted to help. The flight attendant stepped forward again, softer this time. "What song is that? I've never heard it before." Jordan's lips pressed together for a moment, and he swallowed the lump rising in his throat. It's a song my sister liked," he said quietly. "Used to calm her down when she was scared." The mother's nose reddened. She must have been lucky, having someone like you. Jordan didn't answer. He couldn't, because the last time he sang that song to his sister was the day before the accident. A shadow crossed his face, a memory he avoided like a wound he never let heal. Passengers started whispering again, but this time not with annoyance. With awe, with curiosity, with guilt. Then suddenly, thump! The plane jolted slightly as the cabin door closed. The captain's voice filled the speakers, announcing final preparations for takeoff. Everyone hurried to fasten their belts. The mother reached out, and Jordan gently placed the baby back into her arms. The child remained unusually calm, tiny fingers still curled near his chest. Jordan sat down silently, staring at his knees, trying not to feel all the eyes still on him. It made him uncomfortable. Attention for him rarely meant anything good. But this time it was different. The seatbelt sign dinged. The flight attendant approached with a warm expression. "You have a very special gift," she said. "If you ever need anything during the flight, just tell me, okay?" Jordan nodded, barely audible. "Okay." The plane lifted off the ground. As the city lights shrank below them, the cabin settled into a restless quiet. Most passengers finally relaxed, except Jordan. He kept rubbing the frayed fabric of his backpack strap, trying to steady his breathing. Helping always hurt, because it reminded him of the one person he couldn't save. But he tried not to think about that. Instead, he stared out the window until a small voice pulled him back. "Excuse me." It was the mother. Her baby was sleeping peacefully now, face resting on her arm like a tiny angel. The mother leaned slightly into the aisle. "You're traveling alone." "Yeah," Jordan said. "No parents with you?" He shook his head. "No." Her eyes softened. "That must be hard." Jordan didn't know how to respond. Adults rarely spoke to him without judgment or suspicion. She continued, voice low. "I know how scary it feels, doing things without anyone by your side." Jordan looked at her, really looked, and noticed something he hadn't before. The exhaustion, the emotional emptiness, the hidden bruises beneath her quiet strength. She wasn't just tired. She was carrying something heavy, too. He wanted to ask, but before he could, a voice boomed from a few rows behind them. "Hey, that's the kid, right?" Everyone turned. A man with a thick beard and reddish face stood up, pointing toward Jordan. His tone was aggressive, almost accusing. "That's the one I saw you recording earlier," he said to another passenger. "Show me the video." Jordan stiffened. His heart dropped. Another passenger stood up. "Yeah, the kid took the baby and suddenly it stopped crying. I've never seen anything like that." The murmurs grew. He must have some kind of training. Or maybe the mom wasn't doing something right. No, this kid has a talent. It's weird. Amazing, but weird." Jordan shrank into his seat. He could feel the wave coming, the shift from admiration to suspicion. That's how it always went. People celebrated him until they had questions, until they drew conclusions, until he became a problem. The bearded man walked closer. "What's your story, boy? Why'd you get involved anyway?" The tone wasn't kind. It wasn't curious. It was loaded. Jordan's fingers tightened around his backpack. He said nothing. The mother stood up quickly, blocking the man's view. "Leave him alone," she said. "He helped my baby, that's all." The man scoffed. "Lady, I'm just asking." "No," she said firmly. "You're interrogating a child." A few passengers murmured their agreement. Jordan froze. A child? He hadn't heard anyone defend him like that in a long time. The man rolled his eyes and returned to his seat, but the tension lingered like smoke. Jordan whispered, almost afraid to break the silence. "Sorry, I didn't mean to cause anything." The mother shook her head. "You didn't cause anything, you fixed something." Jordan didn't believe her. Not fully. But her words stayed with him. Minutes passed, the plane hummed, the baby slept, and for a short moment Jordan felt safe. But that moment shattered when the captain's voice returned, tighter this time. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have received an urgent message from ground control. If there is a passenger on board named Jordan Miles *, please remain seated. We will need to speak with you upon landing." The entire cabin shifted toward him. His blood turned cold. The mother whispered, "Is that you?" Jordan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Everyone already knew. And from the look in his eyes, he wasn't just a boy traveling alone. He was running from something bigger than anyone on that plane could imagine. For a long moment, no one moved. No one blinked. No one breathed. All eyes locked onto Jordan, the quiet boy who had calmed a crying baby, the boy who had sat invisible minutes earlier, the boy whose name the captain had just announced with unsettling precision. Jordan Miles. The name echoed through the cabin like a warning bell. Even the air felt heavier. Jordan's fingers tightened around his backpack until his knuckles turned white. He kept his gaze fixed on the seat in front of him, refusing to look up, refusing to acknowledge the dozens of eyes watching him. The mother leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jordan, are you in trouble?" He swallowed, his throat felt like sandpaper. I don't know," he said softly. "Maybe. Maybe." A word loaded with fear. The passengers began whispering again, but these whispers were different from before. Uneasy, curious, suspicious. A man across the aisle muttered to his wife, "They only make announcements like that for criminals." "Or missing kids," someone else whispered. "Or maybe he's dangerous," another voice added. Jordan curled into himself, wishing he could fold so small he'd disappear. The mother saw it, that shrinking, that fear, and her chest tightened. "Stop it," she snapped at the surrounding passengers. "He's a child." But people didn't listen to her this time. The flight attendant hurried down the aisle, kneeling beside Jordan again, except the warmth in her tone had changed. Now it was cautious, rehearsed. "Sweetheart, it's all right," she said gently. "The captain just needs to know if you're Jordan Miles. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong." Jordan didn't look at her. "I don't want to talk." The attendant bit her lip. She wasn't trained for this. "I understand, but we need to confirm for landing. When we arrive, some officials might want to talk to you." "Officials?" The word stabbed the boy like a shard of glass. Because he knew what it meant. He'd heard it before. Too many times. Police. Caseworkers. People with badges and questions sharper than knives. He looked out the window, the sky stretching wide and endless, and wished he could fall into it. The mother spoke before he could spiral further. "Hey," she whispered, "look at me." Slowly, he lifted his eyes. "I'm right here," she said. "You're not alone." Her kindness cracked something inside him. A small, painful something. But before he could respond, a loud, annoyed voice cut the moment in half. "Excuse me," the businessman from earlier called out. "This is ridiculous. Why are we all sitting here dealing with this drama? What exactly is this kid involved in?" People turned toward him. A few nodded. A few frowned. A few waited for answers like they were watching a show. The mother straightened her shoulders. "Enough, he hasn't done anything to you." The businessman scoffed. "He must have done something if the captain knows his name." Jordan flinched. Every conversation about him always circled back to that. Suspicion. Assumption. Blame. A shadow of guilt, even when he hadn't done anything. The businessman pointed directly at Jordan. "And why is he traveling alone anyway? Where are his parents? Is he some sort of runaway?" Jordan's breath hitched. The word landed like a punch. "Run away." He lowered his head and said nothing. The mother turned fiercely to the businessman. "You're harassing him." "I'm asking questions," he snapped back. "You're attacking a child." "He's not my problem." "No," she said sharply, "but maybe that's the problem with people like you." The passengers around them stiffened at her words. The businessman's eyes widened, insult flaring across his face. And then, the baby in her arms stirred and began fussing again. Soft at first, then louder. Then the crying returned, desperate, panicked, sharp. The mother tried rocking him, whispering soothing words. But the baby's small body shook harder than before. The passengers groaned collectively. "Oh no, not again. Make it stop." Why won't she control the child? The mother's eyes reddened. She tried everything, but nothing worked. Meanwhile, Jordan watched silently. His heart thumped like it wanted to break out of his chest. Not because of the crying, but because the crying reminded him of something. That he could help. That he wanted to help. Even if he shouldn't. He hesitated. He didn't want attention. He didn't want people questioning his intentions again. He didn't want to be the center of anything. But the baby's cries grew louder and louder, echoing inside him like a memory he couldn't escape. He took a shaky breath, then slowly stood. The cabin reacted instantly. Not again. He's going to do that weird thing. What is he, some kind of baby whisperer? This is odd. Suspicious. No kid calms a baby like that. The businessman folded his arms, as if waiting for proof of his theory. Jordan ignored all of them. He walked toward the mother and held out his hands slightly, hesitant. Can I try again? The mother didn't even think twice. She nodded, relieved and desperate. Jordan lifted the baby gently. The baby cried harder, overwhelmed, red-faced, shaking. The mother reached out anxiously, if it's too much. But Jordan shook his head before she could finish. He took a long breath and started humming again. That same melody. The one stitched with memory. The one that barely held him together. The cabin fell silent instantly. The baby froze. His cries softened, then stopped completely. Just like before. The transformation was so sudden, so dramatic, that the passengers leaned forward without meaning to. Some held their breath. Jordan kept humming, lightly rocking the baby until the small child settled into sleep again. The mother exhaled a shuddering breath. You're unbelievable. Jordan shook his head softly. I'm not. But the baby slept soundly in his arms. The businessman stared at him now, not with anger, but with suspicion sharpened by fear. No kid does that, he muttered. No kid. The flight attendant frowned at him. Sir, please don't start again. I'm just saying something's off. Something inside Jordan snapped. He lifted his head, his eyes suddenly sharper than before. I'm not doing anything wrong, he whispered. The businessman raised a brow. Then what exactly are you doing? Jordan blinked rapidly, fighting a tremble in his voice. I'm just helping. The businessman leaned back, unconvinced. Right, helping. Jordan hugged the baby closer, his jaw tight. The flight attendant gently intervened. Sir, please keep your voice down. But tension clung to the cabin like static. Something was shifting. Expanding. And Jordan felt it too. When the mother finally reached for her sleeping child, Jordan returned him with infinite care, as if handing back a piece of fragile glass. The mother whispered, You're special, Jordan. I don't know why, but you are. He stared at her pained, confused, scared, because the word *special never brought him anything good. Not in the system. Not in his old neighborhood. Not in any place he had been. Special meant targeted. Special meant watched. Special meant trouble. And even as he sat down, even as the plane hummed softly around him, he could feel it. Something about this flight was changing. Something about his past was catching up. Something about his future was about to explode. And whatever waited for him when the plane landed. He wasn't ready for it. Not even close. The baby slept. The mother breathed for the first time in hours. And yet somehow, the tension in the plane didn't fade, it sharpened. The passengers kept glancing at Jordan, as if trying to decode him. Some with curiosity. Some with discomfort. Some with quiet guilt. But one man watched him with increasing hostility. The businessman. He kept shifting in his seat, his knee bouncing, his jaw tight. Every few seconds he'd glance at Jordan, then to the flight attendant, then to the cockpit door, like he was piecing together a story no one else could see. Finally, he couldn't hold it in. He leaned forward, addressing the passengers around him, loud enough to reach half the cabin. Does no one else think this is strange? A kid calming a baby twice. The captain calling him by name, no parents with him. No guardians. This is exactly how danger slips past us when we pretend everything's fine. A wave of discomfort rippled through the passengers. Someone whispered, "Well, I mean, it is asterisk unusual." Another said, "Maybe he's in some program." A woman added softly, "He's just a child." The businessman snapped back. "You have no idea how dangerous people can be. Kids can be involved in things too. Ever heard of decoy criminals, or runaways mixed in the wrong crowd, or kids used for?" "Stop." The mother's voice was low, cold, and final. The businessman turned toward her, eyebrows raised. "Excuse me. He's a child." She pronounced each word like a warning. "I'm just being cautious," the man insisted. "You're being cruel." "They announced his name," he shot back. "That means something serious is going on with him." Jordan stared down at his hands. He could feel something building inside him, heavy, crawling up his ribs like a shadow. The mother looked at him, her tone softening. "You don't have to explain anything, Jordan, you hear me." But Jordan shook his head. Because the truth was, he did feel like he had to explain. Not because of the businessman, not because of the passengers, but because for the first time in a long time, someone was standing up for him. And that was almost more painful than being attacked. He took a deep breath, hesitated, then whispered, "I didn't do anything wrong." No one spoke. Even the businessman froze. Jordan's voice shook. "I wasn't running away, I mean, not from home, His throat tightened. "I just didn't want my grandma to worry, she's in the hospital. I didn't want her thinking she had to take care of me too." The mother's eyes softened. "What about your parents?" Jordan shook his head. "I don't have any." His voice cracked openly now, no effort to hide it. The businessman blinked, even he looked taken aback. Jordan stared at his knees. "My dad left when I was 3. My mom, she passed away after my sister was born." A breath caught somewhere in the cabin. Several passengers shifted, guilt creeping into their expressions. "My grandma raised me. She's old, really old. And she just had surgery, so they're making me stay with my aunt for a while." The businessman leaned back, stunned into silence. But Jordan wasn't done. "Not yet. My sister, she was really sick, really tiny." His voice thinned. "I used to sit with her every night and hum to her. Grandma said maybe it helped her feel safe." The mother pressed a hand to her mouth. Jordan swallowed hard. "She died last year." The words hit the cabin like a physical force. Passengers stared at him, not with suspicion now, but with something else. Something heavier. Something human. Jordan wiped at his cheek. "I keep thinking maybe if I had hummed more, or faster, or softer, or something," his voice cracked, "maybe she would have stayed." The mother whispered, "Oh, sweetheart." Jordan shook his head, not rejecting her sympathy, but rejecting the world that made him need it. "I wasn't trying to cause trouble," he said softly. "I just didn't want anyone thinking I was bad." The businessman sat frozen, the arrogance drained from him. The mother reached across the aisle and gently placed a hand on Jordan's arm. "You are not bad," she said. "You're a boy who tried to save someone he loved." Her words were soft, but they shattered him. Completely. Because no one had ever said it like that before. Not the doctors. Not the teachers. Not the caseworkers. Not the neighbors. Only his grandmother had said things like that, and even she said them through the exhaustion of grief. Jordan inhaled shakily. But the moment was cut short by a sudden movement. The businessman stood. Not angrily. Not rudely. Just quietly humbled. He stepped into the aisle and approached Jordan's row. Every passenger nearby stiffened, worried he'd start again. But he didn't. He knelt, right in front of Jordan. And in a voice stripped of ego, he said, "I judged you. Jordan froze. I assumed, the man continued. I saw a kid traveling alone and made up a whole story in my head. I spoke to you like you were a threat, and you're just a kid who's been through more than most adults. Jordan blinked, confused by the apology, something he rarely heard. I'm sorry. The mother watched, stunned. Even the flight attendant paused halfway down the aisle, shocked by the man's shift. Jordan looked at him, hesitant. You didn't know. That doesn't excuse it. The man's voice was thick. I should have shown you kindness before anything else. Jordan didn't know what to say. The world rarely bent in his direction. He wasn't used to softness, especially not from people like this businessman who lived in a world far from his own. So he simply nodded. A small nod. But the man looked relieved anyway. The businessman stood slowly. A few passengers actually smiled at Jordan, small, hesitant smiles, but genuine. And for the first time on this flight, the cabin didn't see Jordan as a threat, or a problem, or a question. They saw him as a boy who had carried too much grief, a boy who had soothed someone else's child while still mourning his own loss, a boy who had protected his grandmother even while breaking quietly inside. But the rising action wasn't done, because vulnerability brings healing, but it also invites truth. And the truth was closing in. A few rows back, a man pulled out his phone. He had filmed the baby calming moment earlier, just to show his wife the weird scene on the plane. He hadn't meant anything by it. But now, as he replayed the video, he noticed something strange, something important, something that didn't match Jordan's story. His eyebrows furrowed. He zoomed in, watched again, and again. Then his expression changed from curiosity to shock. He stood up abruptly, and what he said next would flip the entire plane and Jordan's life upside down. The man holding the phone stood so suddenly that half the cabin startled. His face had gone pale, not with fear, but with a kind of stunned confusion. He lifted his hand and pointed, not at Jordan, but at the mother's sleeping baby. Everyone look, he said quietly. Just look at this. The businessman frowned. What now? The man walked into the aisle, holding his phone like it contained something fragile. I recorded earlier, the moment the baby stopped crying. I just wanted to show my wife how fast he calmed down because it seemed strange. Some passengers leaned forward. The mother tightened her grip around her son. Is there a problem? The man hesitated. Then he pressed play. Everyone listened. There was the baby screaming. There was the cabin filled with annoyance. There was Jordan walking up slowly, reaching out. And then, the humming, soft, gentle, almost heartbreakingly pure. But that wasn't what made everyone gasp. The moment Jordan hummed, the baby's tiny hands unclenched. His breathing slowed instantly. His eyes opened, not with fear, but with recognition. Recognition. The baby reached for Jordan like he knew him. The mother froze. The passengers whispered. What was that? That's not normal. Did you see how the baby reacted? He looked like he remembered him. The mother stared at her child, and for the first time since boarding, real fear flickered across her face. Jordan shook his head rapidly. No, I don't know him, I swear. But the man wasn't accusing him. His voice was trembling for a different reason. That's not all, he said. There's something else. He zoomed in. On the baby's tiny wrist. A bracelet. Blue and white. Knitted. Old. Jordan's breath stopped. It was the same pattern as the one in his backpack. The same style his grandmother knitted for his sister in the NICU. The same soft yarn, same stitching, same shade. The cabin erupted in murmurs. Wait. No way. That can't be a coincidence. The mother looked stunned. This bracelet was given to Oliver at birth. The nurse said a volunteer donated handmade ones. I don't even know who it came from. Jordan's heart hammered against his ribs. His vision blurred. He clutched the straps of his backpack like it was the only thing holding him together. "I don't understand," he whispered. The phone man swallowed hard. "Kid, show us what's inside your bag." Jordan froze. The passengers stilled. The mother whispered, "You don't have to." "Yes," Jordan said softly, trembling. I want to." His hands shook as he unzipped his backpack. He reached inside, pulled out the tiny baby hat. White yarned, blue stripes, hand-knitted, the exact same pattern as the baby's bracelet. The mother gasped. Her baby stirred slightly but didn't wake. People leaned closer, breathless. Jordan held the little hat like it was a piece of his soul. "My grandma made this for my sister," he whispered. "She said she made 4 identical ones, 2 hats, 2 bracelets, one for healing and one for whoever needed comfort in the world." He looked at the bracelet on the baby's wrist. One of the missing pieces. Right here, on a child he'd never met. The mother covered her mouth. "What are the odds?" The businessman's eyes softened. "This isn't random." The flight attendant stepped closer, voice shaking slightly. "That bracelet was given at our partner hospital, the same one your grandma volunteered at last year." Jordan blinked in confusion. She did. "She would come on Saturdays," the attendant said. "She made hats and wristbands for newborns. We all knew her." Something warm and painful bloomed in Jordan's chest. His grandmother. Her knitting. Her Saturdays spent helping other sick babies, even when she was sick herself. The pieces clicked together. Sharp, bright, beautiful. He looked at the baby again. Asleep. Safe. Peaceful. Because of him. Because of his humming. Because of something deeper than coincidence. The mother's eyes filled with tears. She held her child close, voice trembling. "Jordan, when you hummed, he reacted like he knew that tune." Jordan's lips parted. "What tune?" She stepped forward, not questioning him, not doubting him, but seeking the truth hidden between both their stories. "Sing it again," she whispered. Jordan hesitated, but slowly, gently he hummed. The same lullaby. The one he hummed to his sister in the NICU. The one he hummed on nights he couldn't sleep. The one his grandmother taught him. As he hummed, the baby exhaled. His tiny fingers curled softly, not in fear but in contentment. The mother broke. Completely. She covered her face, sobbing quietly as the realization hit her stomach like gravity itself. "That's the lullaby his father used to sing," she whispered. "Before he left, before everything fell apart, before Oliver was even born." Jordan blinked rapidly. "I don't know your husband." "You don't," she said softly. "But music travels, traditions travel, pain travels, healing travels." The businessman stepped forward. "It's not about knowing each other, it's about connection." The mother looked at Jordan, really looked. "I don't know what brought you on this flight. I don't know why my baby reacts to your voice like he's hearing something from home. I don't know why he has a bracelet from your grandmother." She paused. "But I know one thing," she said. "You were meant to be here." Jordan's chin trembled. He whispered, Why me, why now?" The mother stepped closer, so close their worlds finally overlapped. "Because your sister didn't stay," she said. "But she left something behind, a lullaby, a bracelet, a piece of comfort you carried with you maybe for a child who needed it." A single tear slipped down Jordan's cheek. He didn't wipe it. The passengers watched in absolute silence, not as spectators, but as witnesses. Of grief. Of healing. Of something bigger than coincidence, but grounded entirely in humanity. The mother extended her hand to him. "Jordan," she whispered, "you didn't fail your sister." The boy inhaled sharply. "She didn't leave because you weren't enough," the mother continued. "She left because she was tired, but she left her tune with you so you could help other little hearts breathe." Jordan broke down. Silent tears. Shoulders shaking. grief letting itself out after being locked up far too long. The mother didn't hesitate. She pulled Jordan toward her gently, carefully, guiding his head to rest against her shoulder. Not as a stranger, not as a passenger, but as a boy who'd carried too much alone. And she held him. The baby slept between them, peaceful and still. Passengers wiped their eyes. Even the businessman turned away, pretending to look at the window as he blinked back tears. Jordan whispered into her shoulder, "I miss her so much." The mother whispered, "I know, and she would be so proud of you." Jordan closed his eyes. For the first time in a year, he believed her. The weight on his chest loosened. His breath steadied. His heart softened, and the entire cabin felt it. The shift, the release, the quiet miracle that wasn't supernatural. Just human. Just love. Just connection. The pilot's voice finally returned, soft and almost emotional. Flight attendants, prepare for landing. But the landing was just the beginning. Because when this plane touched the ground, none of them would be the same. Not the mother. Not the baby. Not the businessman. And definitely not Jordan Miles. The boy whose pain had become someone else's healing. And whose healing was just beginning. The hospital corridor was quiet now. Not silent, hospitals were never truly silent, but the chaos of earlier had faded into a calm, steady hum. Soft beeps, muffled footsteps, a distant voice paging a doctor, the kind of background noise that made everything feel softer, slower, safer. Amir sat in the waiting area, knees pulled up slightly, hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles had gone white. His backpack, the one he carried everywhere, rested at his feet. For the first time today, he wasn't clutching it like a shield. He just stared down at the floor tiles, breathing slowly, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Hours ago, he was on a plane. A kid nobody noticed. A boy people dismissed. A shadow in the background. And now everything had changed. A door opened. Light footsteps approached. He didn't look up at first, afraid it was another officer coming to question him again, or another nurse checking if he needed anything he couldn't ask for. He kept his eyes on the floor. Then a soft voice broke the silence. "Amir." He lifted his head. It was her. The billionaire heiress, Sabrina, the girl who hadn't spoken in 10 years, the girl who had curled into herself like a locked door no one could open, the girl who today, because of him, had said her first words. Her hair was messy from the chaos, but her eyes were alive in a way he hadn't seen before. Not distant, not empty, not trapped. Alive. She walked toward him slowly, almost shy, as if she wasn't used to walking toward people anymore. He stood up, unsure what to do, unsure what was allowed, unsure how close he should be to someone like her, someone from a world he'd never belonged to. But she didn't stop. She came right up to him. And then she did something that shocked him more than anything had today. She hugged him. Not a quick, polite hug. A desperate one. As if she had been waiting years for this exact moment. Amir froze. He didn't know what to do with his arms. His brain forgot every instruction it had ever learned. But slowly, shyly, he lifted his hands and hugged her back. She trembled in his arms. A tremble that wasn't fear. It was release. When she finally pulled away, she wiped at her eyes, embarrassed but smiling. Actually smiling. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice soft but steady. I kept hearing that song, the one you hummed. I don't know why it felt familiar, but it did. It felt safe." He looked at her, confused, heart thudding in his chest. "That song," he whispered back, "it was my mom's. The only thing I remember from her. She used to sing it when things were bad." A long silence passed between them, not empty, but loaded with something that felt like understanding. Deeper than words. Her father appeared at the end of the hall. Normally, he walked like he owned entire countries. But now he walked like a father who had just gotten his daughter back from a world he couldn't reach. His eyes landed on Amir. For a moment, Amir braced himself. Adults with power usually meant fear, danger, punishment. But the man's expression softened. Deep gratitude, raw, honest. He stopped in front of Amir and lowered himself to the boy's level, something a billionaire probably hadn't done in years. "Son," he said quietly, "you saved my daughter. I can never repay that, but I'll try." Amir swallowed, throat tight. "I didn't do anything special," he whispered. "Yes," the man replied, voice cracking. "You did. You did what none of us could. You reached her." Sabrina slipped her hand into Amir's, something that made the billionaire flinch at first, not in disapproval but in surprise. Two worlds he never imagined touching were now holding hands like they belonged. A doctor approached them with a clipboard and a soft smile. "She's stable," he said. "Trauma responses like this, they don't break overnight, but the progress she made today," he shook his head in awe. "It's extraordinary." Sabrina glanced at Amir again, trying not to smile too wide. The doctor continued, "I recommend consistent exposure to whatever triggered her recovery. Familiarity, emotional anchor points, anything deeply comforting." The billionaire looked at his daughter, then at the boy beside her. He understood exactly what the doctor meant. He looked at Amir again. "If you're comfortable," he said gently, "I'd like you to stay involved in her recovery, not as some obligation, not as charity, but because she wants you here." Amir blinked, stunned. "Me?" Sabrina nodded quickly, eyes hopeful. He didn't know how to answer. He wasn't used to being wanted, needed, valued. He was used to being pushed aside, talked down to, accused, judged, ignored. But here, two people were looking at him like he mattered. A warmth spread through his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. "Hope. Real hope." He nodded slowly. "I can stay," he whispered. Sabrina's smile widened, a real genuine smile, bright enough to light the entire hallway. The billionaire exhaled in relief, eyes glistening for the first time today. "Thank you," he whispered. Amir shook his head. "You don't have to thank me. I just didn't want her to be alone." Sabrina squeezed his hand. "You're not alone either," she said quietly, her voice still soft, still shaky, but now full of life. Those 4 words went deeper into Amir's heart than anyone could see. Because no one had said that to him in years. The 3 of them stood there in the hallway, a billionaire, a broken girl, and a boy who thought he had nothing left to offer the world. Yet somehow, together, they had healed something no one else could. Not with money, not with status, not with power, but with something much stronger. Connection, understanding, humanity. And as they walked out of the hospital together, Sabrina holding Amir's hand, her father walking protectively beside them, it felt like the beginning of something none of them could fully describe. But all of them desperately needed. A new story. A second chance. For all 3 of them. And maybe, just maybe, this time they wouldn't walk alone. Sometimes the people society judges the harshest are the ones carrying the deepest wounds. A crying baby, an overwhelmed mother, a silent girl, a lonely boy, none of them were problems. They were human beings fighting battles no one could see. Yet the world is quick to label, quick to sigh, quick to film, quick to blame. But humanity isn't measured by how we treat people who are easy to understand. It's measured by how we treat people who are struggling, the ones who don't fit neatly into our expectations, the ones whose pain makes us uncomfortable. One boy chose compassion when everyone else chose irritation. One hum changed a life. One moment of softness unlocked a voice trapped for 10 years. And that is the heart of this story. You never know which tiny act of kindness will be the one that saves someone. It might be a smile at the right moment, a gentle word when someone feels invisible, a hand reaching out when everyone else steps away, or simply refusing to judge someone whose life you know nothing about. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones who shout the loudest, but the ones who keep going quietly, carrying memories in their hearts and scars on their souls. Like Amir, a boy who had every reason to give up on the world, yet still chose to offer comfort. Sometimes the most broken people are the ones who heal others without even realizing it. And sometimes the person you least expect becomes someone's lifeline. This story reminds us that empathy is not weakness. It is courage. It is power. It is what makes us human. Because in a world full of noise, judgment, fear, and division, the rarest and most beautiful thing is a heart that chooses understanding over anger. So the next time you see someone struggling, instead of rolling your eyes or turning away, ask yourself, what if I'm witnessing the hardest moment of their life? What if one small kindness could change everything for them? What if I'm the one person who can make them feel seen? You don't need money. You don't need status. You don't need perfection. You just need a little compassion. Because sometimes, a quiet hum is all it takes to break a decade of silence. And sometimes, one gentle human moment can rewrite an entire life.